And I think everything is going. I got a level. Would you talk for me just a little like you normally talk?
Hello, hello, hello,
No,
hello,
no,
hello.
I got to be louder than that.
Hello, hello,
There you go,
hello.
project. Okay. And I'm always way too loud, so I'm going to try to put a sock in it today, but you can get right on that mic. There you go. Okay.
Good.
Welcome to Inside Look. I'm Jeff Lyons, joined today by Michael Fecca, our meteorologist on weekends here at the station, and our newest member, although you're kind of old new by now, aren't you?
Yeah, we're about, what are we, like 7-8 months into it?
8 months in or so. You must
Yeah.
feel like you've been in severe weather boot camp the last few weeks.
It's relentless here.
Yeah.
It never ends.
Well, Michael, tell us, we need a little snapshot first of the Michael Fecca experience. So when did the weather bug bite and what caused that?
It was, of course, like most meteorologists, very young. So I remember as a kid, anytime there was like a thunderstorm that rolled through, I would always kind of want to be outside, even though I know I shouldn't be. But I just always wanted to watch it. And then as I got into middle school, it was 7th grade, we actually had our first like actual meteorology unit.
And this is in Philadelphia.
Yeah, this is back in Philadelphia.
Right.
And it was 7th grade, and we started to learn about the water cycle. We had these little diagrams where you put the ice in the top and then evaporate the water, and it comes back down. And I was like, oh, this is kind of fun and interesting. And then I discovered the Weather Channel. That was just weather all the time. So then I had that on pretty much like every TV screen through middle school and into high school. So I've always just kind of been, affinity to the weather.
So
then.
were you like the weatherman then at school? You have a class clown, you have a weatherman, somebody that knows the weather, right?
Yeah, and no one ever asked for it.
No, they didn't ask you.
No. I just made sure.
Well, the
that
joke's
I gave
on
it to
them right now, then, isn't it?
No one ever asked for it. I just started talking about it, and they were like, "All right."
Yeah. So you're in Philadelphia. You graduate high school. Now you're going to go to weather school. And was that a hard decision for you to go to meteorology school versus some other profession, or was that your intended path?
That was the intended path, pretty much. From 7th grade, I knew I was like, oh, I can do this as a job. I never really realized, like, obviously I always watched the meteorologist on TV, but I never really like made the connection, like, oh, that could be
me up there, yeah.
So then I was like, yeah, I'll try this.
And so you did. So where'd you go to college?
So I ended up going to college at a very small school called Northern Vermont University, formerly known as Linden State College. So I went there for 4 years. They had a great program, not only just for atmospheric sciences, but also for the broadcasting aspect of it.
And you wanted to cover tornadoes and severe weather, so naturally you took your first job in Bangor, Maine.
Yes,
that makes a lot of sense, right?
Went from one cold tundra to the other cold tundra,
right.
But it was on the coast this time.
Have to go where the job is, right? So you worked a couple of years up in Maine, and then you called us and said, I want to come down and see and experience severe weather.
Yes.
Right?
That's exactly what happened.
You really want it. So has it lived up to what you thought it would be coming out here to the Midwest?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was the day before my first day. I think it was July 9th that we had a bunch of tornadoes, and I like my first day was the 10th, but I came in.
Right, we had you come on in. We said you might see something interesting today.
And I was like, I've never covered tornadoes before. I better go in and watch this. And man, that was interesting.
And it was the Mount Vernon tornado,
Yes.
which was I think from Hurricane Beryl. I think was spinning through. And, of course, we were all very, very busy that day. Byron was working. Arden Gregory was working. Our whole team all afternoon. Very unusual to have July tornadoes. And so I saw, though, you looked at it and you thought, yeah, okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
And then I think like a month later, we all left town and left you in charge. And then you got your baptism by fire.
That one fateful night.
What was that like? So we had some thunderstorms and tornado warnings and such in Vanderburgh County. So that was the first time you really had to, it was on you.
Yeah, that was like totally me for a little bit there. I started, cutting into the newscast. We blew out the entire 6 o'clock show and then some. And then Arden came strolling on in, and then she started to help at the information desk there. So we were able to kind of toss back and forth. But that was definitely a nail biter there. I was watching the storms come together, and then I knew as soon as they met, something bad was going to happen there. And then that's when we got that tornado warning.
How's it been for you to apply, since you're fairly fresh out of school versus certain other groups and individuals, me, to apply your, radar meteorology, severe weather meteorology, and then actually see it all play out and hear the hail on the roof and feel the wind in that. What's that been like for you?
It's definitely a totally different thing, watching it on radar, because of course, I've always kind of been sheltered from the severe weather aspect of things up until I got here, because, northern New England doesn't really see that kind of stuff. But I would always have my radar app up, and I'm looking somewhere in the Midwest where there's tornado warnings, and I'm looking at the little tornado signatures and stuff. But then when you're here and then you see it in a place that and you've seen in person, and then like you mentioned, just hearing it falling on the roof, and then you're like, oh, it's getting closer. It's definitely gets very intense.
Your adrenaline goes up. Now, we just recently, and I don't know exactly when this particular podcast will drop, but you and Arden and Byron and I, first time ever that we've had 4 meteorologists on the air at the same time all night. We were on almost 6 hours. Yeah. So describe that experience. I mean, we knew it was coming, too. For several days, we were talking about it leading up to the event overnight. We're talking about March 15th. So kind of walk us through your feelings and that leading up to. Did you have dread? Were you anxious? Were you just curious, or how did that play?
I think I was more curious because I had never been in that kind of risk before. That level 4 and 3 I hadn't seen yet up until that point. So I was like, kind of didn't know exactly what to expect and like what was going to happen there. But once it started, it really took off. So once that happened, it's kind of like you don't have time to think about how you feel. You're just kind of working on the radar and tossing back and forth, and then before you know it, 6 hours later, it's all over.
Yeah, and of course you got to be able to talk and communicate, and at the same time do the meteorology. And I don't know that can really be taught in school, right? You can't simulate the experience. So like I said, this
Absolutely
has been like severe weather boot camp for you.
Yeah, it's been definitely a huge learning experience. I've learned so much so far in the time that I've been here. So very grateful for all of that, even though it can be stressful at times.
But clearly you know your stuff, just like Arden and Byron do, and I hope I do. And you're able to communicate that. So that must make you feel good, you know, about what you're doing.
Yeah, it definitely feels good, after the fact. Once it's all over and you can kind of decompress and be like, all right, I did that. Hopefully helped people out and gave them fair warning, and hopefully no one got hurt or injured and stuff like that. So it's definitely more gratifying after it's over. Right.
Everybody can kind of take a sigh of relief. So you mentioned severe weather. You have any curiosity about working in a hurricane market?
I kind of think about it because, you move around a lot in this industry, so you bounce around. So I got my nor'easter and freezing temperature experience up in northern New England. I've come here. I'm getting my severe weather experience. I'm like collecting infinity stones of weather.
But we want you to stay around a while. This isn't Michael's swan song. We're just kind of checking in to see how you're holding up.
Exactly.
If we need to prop you up or not. I always, I think I would dread working in a hurricane market because it's so much more prolonged. You could be on the air literally 3 or 4 days without stop. Because as hurricanes move slower, and all the weather factors of it, and they're so much more destructive over wide areas, so you're going to have big impacts. And I can't quite, of course, I'm a little older than you. I have more miles on my odometer. You still got the spunk. You could probably handle it, but I think it would equate to this in some ways. How do you think it might differ, though?
I think it would differ in the fact that you said, because it's just so much longer, and you also get a lot more buildup to those hurricanes, because you can see them out in the ocean, right? Once they start forming, and it's kind of like you're just watching it. Is it going to turn one way? Is it going to turn this way? And it's those little adjustments that are a lot of pressure to kind of make sure you're not veering off too far with the forecast, and then your last minute adjustments there. So it's definitely a longer lead up, and then as the storm's there, it's a longer time to actually cover it, and then of course the lingering impacts after that as well, because it is so widespread.
Sure. I got the good fortune of meeting your folks, which I don't usually get. I've met Arden's folks. I've met Byron's parents too. And your mom wasn't real crazy about you moving out into Tornado Alley. No. How's she handling all this?
Honestly, she's handling it pretty well. The other day, it was before that, March 15th thing. I called her. I was like, hey, I'm going to have a lot of tornadoes here. And she's like, what? What do you mean? I was like, yeah, a lot of them, possibly strong ones. And she was like, really? And I was like, yeah. And then she started being like, freaking out like moms do. But overall, she's handling it pretty well.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll hopefully see one day, take a picture.
I guess if she checks your location dot and it's here at 1115 Mount Auburn Road, she's like, well, he's working, he must be safe.
Right.
So that's a plus. Does she watch you, or do your folks watch your coverage since they can watch on the app and everything?
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes they'll watch, sometimes they don't. Especially in the beginning when I first started, they were always watching every day or every time that I was on. But now they're like, "Oh, was it good?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was great."
Yeah, we'll read about it in the papers, right?
Tune in next time, Mom.
Yeah. Tell me about the rest of your family.
Oh, the rest of my family. So it's a family of 4. So my dad, mom, me, and my brother Chris. We grew up in Philadelphia. We're all just like one big, loud Italian family, pretty much classic, what you see in the movies, with all the 40 cousins and aunts and uncles and all that. So, it was always a very loud household, hectic, always someone to talk to, always someone there. And then, of course, lots of arguments sometimes.
Yeah, and good food. But the food's good.
Oh, yeah, the food's fantastic.
And you mentioned, I think you told me a while back, your grandpa was a tailor, made suits.
Yes, he made suits up until just 2 years ago is when he finally retired. He's 90 now.
So you get tailored suits as part of your family agreement, right?
Yep, he'll make me one, or I'll just buy them, and he'll be like, let me see. He's got the accent and everything, so he'll do the pins and needles and start stitching it up, and he'll have a new suit out in a day.
Did you explain product placement to him? You're here on the air.
Right.
That's good. But actually, our sales department might bill him. You maybe don't mention that. Yeah, they'll invoice him for your time on the air. So you've been at it in the weather business, about 3 years now, right? Because you were up in Bangor a couple, and then it'll be 3 here. So where would you like to be? Like, what's the dream job for you? Not that this isn't a dream job, but let's face it, we have a lot of people who come and go here at the state. We hope you don't go, but obviously you're from Philadelphia. What do you think would be the next step for you?
I think at least I don't know what the next step would be, but I think the end goal would to definitely be able to go back home to Philadelphia, whenever that may be, 10 years from now, maybe 5 years or whatever, and just be able to actually be back with my family and have them watch me on their screens, instead of...
Do you think the Philadelphia weather, though, would be as satisfying and fulfilling as Midwestern, 4 seasons in 4 days?
I don't think so. The weather's pretty tame in Philadelphia. We get all 4 seasons, but it's never too bad of each season, right? Like we'll get some snow, we'll get a couple of thunderstorms in the summer, and then the fall and the spring are hot or cold, and then muddy, of course. So,
and our company Gray has stations all over the country, including Honolulu, which I always thought would be the plum assignment. I don't know if anybody else has tried to bid on those jobs or not. Does that have any appeal?
I think it would, especially in my younger years. I would like to move around as much as possible, and if I scored something in Hawaii, free vacation for everybody. Just come on over. That's
right. There's probably a big waiting list to get those jobs out there. But Missoula, we could send you there tomorrow. Well, Michael, I really appreciate you coming on Inside Look, and I'm so glad you're here. I know Arden and Byron and I are all thankful. We've got 4 of us that can handle severe weather, whatever comes, and I'm sure we will get more as we move into the spring and summer. So thanks for taking out a little bit of time here. I know you're busy, but
thank you for having me. This was fun.
Oh, yeah, and this is part of the initiation process. So we put you through severe weather camp. We put you through the winter stuff, the podcast. And I think Arden has a calisthenics program that you have to complete in like a 3-minute period. It is. You got to run around the parking lot. So get your running shoes on for that. Thanks for joining. I'm Jeff Lyons. This has been Inside Look. You can watch Inside Look on the 14 News YouTube channel, or you can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. Michael Fecca, meteorologist. We will see you next time here on Inside Look.